If you manage a medical practice, you know the feeling. You finish a long week, sit down at your desk, and find yourself staring at a denial queue that keeps growing. Valid claims, money your practice already earned, sitting in administrative limbo. That local frustration is mirroring a massive industry trend. In 2024, the national initial claim denial rate reached 11.8%. The numbers are actively moving in the wrong direction across the board. U.S. healthcare organizations collectively lost an estimated $262 billion to denied claims last year. Scaling down to a typical medical group generating $10 million, that's roughly $480,000 walking out the door annually. A growing denial queue is a structural hemorrhage of practice revenue, quietly compounding month after month. 42% of all claim denials are linked directly to coding inaccuracies and clinical documentation integrity. But watch what happens when we look at avoidability. A staggering 84% of all denials could have been fixed before submission. Once a claim hits the denial queue, recovery odds drop drastically. Data shows that 65% of denied claims are never reworked at all. Medical staff simply run out of time, and the backlog grows too large to manage. The revenue loss to missing documentation is permanent. But because errors happen upstream, this entire loss is preventable by catching mistakes at the source. Practice leaders are fully aware that accurate documentation matters. The obstacle is that finding and keeping credentialed CDI staff in-house is currently the #1 staffing challenge in medical group management. The math is unforgiving. When you factor in salary, benefits, payroll taxes, and training, the fully loaded cost of a single in-house medical record specialist runs between $55,000 and $75,000 a year. When those staff members inevitably turn over, the operation stalls. Documentation quality drops. Denial rates spike, and clinical providers end up spending their evenings catching up on administrative paperwork, a burnout cycle known as pajama time. The cost of failing to catch errors early is steep. Every time a practice has to manually rework a single denied commercial claim, they spend an average of $63 in administrative labor. Multiply that by hundreds of claims, and the margins vanish. Trying to solve the documentation crisis with stretched, high-turnover administrative staff creates an expensive loop that actively makes the denial problem worse. A growing number of practices are opting out of that cycle. Instead of building the function internally, they outsource their CDI entirely to dedicated teams whose sole job is documentation integrity. These teams don't rely on general front desk staff. They utilize professionals carrying specific AAPC or AHIMA credentials. These specialists know exactly how to translate complex clinical care into precise billing codes that satisfy payer requirements. This flowchart illustrates how a modern integration works. Outsourced specialists don't use screenshots or exported spreadsheets. They eliminate lag times by operating directly inside your practice's existing electronic medical record system, right alongside your clinical team. Behind the scenes, AI-augmented workflows scrub the data. Predictive software flags missing information and blocks error patterns before the claim leaves the system, preventing up to 85% of avoidable denials. High-performing CDI programs maintain visibility by delivering weekly KPI reports. Practice managers can track throughput, exact accuracy rates, and document turnaround times without having to micromanage the staff doing the work. Embedding a specialized team straight into the EMR stops denials before they start. It turns clinical documentation from a reactive, delayed chore into a proactive defense mechanism. This line graph shows the financial outcome. Active, expert-led CDI programs produce a 25 to 30% reduction in claim denials. With a dedicated outsourced team, like Staffingly, practices see documentation error rates drop and hold consistently below 1%. Instead of carrying an unpredictable $75,000 annual salary burden, practices shift to a transparent, flat-rate model. The cost is $399 per week, per seat, with zero hidden taxes or training overhead. And the transition is fast. A practice launches a fully credentialed CDI team inside their EMR within 14 days, operating month to month with no long-term contracts. All of this happens under strict enterprise-grade security. The workflow is protected by a compliance framework, including HIPAA, SOC 2 Type 2, and HITRUST certifications. Practices closing their revenue gaps have stopped trying to outwork the math internally. By treating documentation integrity as an expert, outsourced function, They are systematically eliminating the denial crisis at the source. If